Hey, what's happening everyone? Welcome to another tutorial on mixing and recording rap and hip-hop in Pro Tools. I am producer, mixer, and engineer Nick Battistone, and today I'm going to walk you through triggering ad-lib vocals via a MIDI sampler. As a mix engineer, there's a lot of times that I'll get sessions that have, tons and tons of ad-lib tracks throughout, but, there's one section or either, a couple of different pieces, lines, or phrases scattered throughout the song that add a lot of really cool energy and, really hype up the track. However, I don't feel like sitting here and comping together an ad-lib track by copying and pasting and building, a completely new track from scratch. So what I've done is come up with a way in which we are going to choose a section of really hyped, energetic ad-libs and trigger those via structure free inside of Pro Tools. So we're going to assign those to a MIDI controller and then trigger them via the controller inside of Structure. Now the cool thing about that is this. Since it will be triggered by MIDI, we will have the same abilities to edit those notes the same as we would with any other MIDI instrument. So quantize and other time operations will come into play, which makes it really helpful. Also, it's polyphonic. So if you have multiple ad-libs that you'd like to trigger simultaneously, say you have the same word that's said differently 3 or 4 times, you can play all of those notes at the exact same time and layer all of those ad-lib vocals on top of each other inside of the exact same track. So now you won't have to create 3 or 4 ad-lib vocal tracks if you want to layer or stack some different ad-libs. You can do all of that in one track via an instrument track using the MIDI sample inside of Structure Free. I actually figured this out. I was just mixing a session featuring Jim Jones about a month or so ago, and anybody who knows Jim Jones knows that he's pretty famous for a specific and unique couple of phrases of ad-libs that he puts into a lot of his tracks. Well, the song was over 4 minutes long and featured a lot of different artists. However, he only ad-libs in a couple of parts. And I'm not talking about dubs or tags. I'm talking about the real energetic, hyped-up ad-lib. I felt like it was one of those things that would fit the song better if I just kind of put it in various spots throughout the track. So I didn't feel like sitting here playing back the track for hours upon hours while I copied and pasted and comped together a new ad-lib. So I threw it onto Structure Free and made a sample out of it, and then just went through the song and dropped in and played ad-libs wherever I felt like they fit, and it worked. So I thought it might be a really cool thing for you guys to learn as well. And now also the big thing about this too is it's not specific for just mixing and doing ad-libs. I'm showing you how to do this with ad-libs, but you can do this with any audio file. Excuse me. You could do this with vocal samples, with guitar samples, with drum breaks, whatever you absolutely want. You can import any audio into your sessions. So if you're making a beat inside of Pro Tools and you want to chop up or, pinch some drum hits, or chop up some really cool string stabs or guitar, solo parts or riffs, whatever, you can do this exact same technique and get a really cool result. Okay, so enough of me talking and wasting time here. Let's go ahead and dive right into this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, obviously, we're going to identify our ad-lib track in this session here. This is an incredibly cool artist named B.U.G. Now, he is a very interesting character. He has some really cool, very personable, energetic, and kind of fun ad-libs that he throws behind some of his tracks. And I found that during his first verse is actually, from start to finish, the ad-libs that he did in the first verse are the pieces that I'd like to use for my sample because it's a good variation of the types of ad-libs that he does in his tracks. So let's go ahead and take a quick listen to a couple of those now just to kind of pick and choose what we'd like to use.
Soldiers.
Whoop, need to solo it out first, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, there's one.
Yup. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Yo.
Okay. So we get the point. It's just a couple of different words, but in context to the song, again, there's 3 different artists on this particular song. So being able to go through and trigger his ad-libs, because again, really, the rest of these he was tagging the other artist's verses on his ad-lib track. And that's cool, and, obviously I want to leave that on the original ad-lib, but I'd like to take some of these energetic, little words and hypes that he does here and drop those throughout the song. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, obviously, like I said, is identify the section. Now, since all of my ad-libs kind of fall consecutively throughout this entire verse, it makes it a little bit easier for me. Now, the same philosophy and technique and practice will apply if your ad-libs are scattered throughout the song. That doesn't matter, but this makes it a little bit easier and easier for me to do this in a tutorial since these are all right, one after the other. So we're just going to go ahead and cut and separate these ad-libs from the rest of the ad-lib track. So we have them as a separate region. So just go ahead and click on the head of where you'd like to cut and drop it right here. As you see, I just did it right here without telling you actually. But hold down the Apple key and hit E, and that will slice. And the same thing here. Select your marker, Apple E, and then now you can see we have a separate region. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create one new mono audio track. So those Mac users, it's Shift Apple N or Track New. And again, one new mono audio track. Click Create. And we're going to drop this in right underneath the ad-lib track. And just name this ad-lib source. And for right now, let's go ahead and mute out the original ad-lib track. And we are going to hold down the Option key, grab the region that we just created of the ad-libs that we want to use, and holding down the Option key, drag it onto our new track. And all this is doing is making an exact copy. And I'm doing this because I want to leave the original ad-lib track intact because we're going to be slicing this up here in a moment. And, if I decide later that I want to do something different, I just like to keep the original track in, as perfect condition prior to actually doing my real edits and mixes as, possible. For things like this, I just like to create a duplicate or copy the sections that I like to use so I know my original is intact and I don't have to go through my regions and re-import it later. Okay, so now that we have our original, a copy of our original on a new track, the next thing we're going to do is open up Beat Detective. We're going to separate these regions into individual samples, so each one of these ad-libs is its own region, and to do that we're using Beat Detective. So go up and select Event, and select Beat Detective. Now Beat Detective will open. Beat Detective has a lot of really cool operations, but for this we're going to be using the region separation. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and highlight the region and select the region in which we're going to be using. And let me go ahead and just turn this down really quick so it's not interrupting what we're trying to do. Okay. Now region separation is what we're going after. So go ahead and tick region separation. Now we're going to go over here under detection and select analyze. Now Pro Tools and Beat Detective are going to analyze that region. Now we can go ahead and select the sensitivity slider and start bringing it up. Once you hit usually around 30% or so, you'll start to see little lines appearing at the very beginning of all of your waveforms. Let me go ahead and zoom in here on that so you can see. Now what Beat Detective is doing is it's dropping in a marker right here, essentially showing us where the region separation will occur. This is, again, exactly what we want to do by, slicing each of these ad-libs into their own separate regions. And we want, obviously, Beat Detective to cut those as close as possible. So that way, when we trigger the sample via the MIDI controller, there's obviously no delay from having some dead space before the sample. So Beat Detective is going to slice those in pretty close for us. And we're going to go ahead and scroll through and make sure that it's dropped a separation marker at the beginning of each waveform. Okay, now that we've went ahead and confirmed that all of our cuts are going to be proper, let's go ahead and click Separate. All right, now you can go ahead and close out of Beat Detective. And now back in our edit window, you can see that Beat Detective has sliced all of these ad-libs into separate regions for us. Now, first thing we're going to do is this one here at the beginning is obviously a dead air, completely empty region. So let's just go ahead and delete that. Now I'm going to zoom back out a little bit here. Okay. Now the very next thing we're going to do is go ahead and create our instrument track in which we're going to be placing structure free. So right here underneath of our ad-lib source track, let's go ahead and create a new track, Shift Apple N or Track New. And this time we're creating one new stereo instrument track. Click Create. Let's go ahead and sample trigger. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and drop in a multi-channel instrument, which is structure free. And again, this comes free with every version of Pro Tools since, I think, version 8, maybe 7.4, I can't remember. Actually, I think it came out between 7.4 and 8, but don't hold me to that. I think it did, though. Okay, so generally speaking, Structure Free will default to some sort of patch already being loaded, which gives you a good opportunity to go ahead and just, if you have a MIDI controller hooked up, whether it's something like the MPD that I have here on my desk, which I don't think you guys can see, or this little MIDI controller over here to the right, it doesn't really matter, obviously, what it is. It's all up to your preference. But since this has a patch loaded up, it's cool to just go ahead and hit a key, make sure that your MIDI controller is obviously connected and properly routed, and that your Structure Free is actually getting a signal from your controller. So just going ahead and giving it a quick test, making sure everything's working properly. Now we're going to go ahead and delete this sine wave. And depending on how your structure opens and what your default settings are, it's best to just go ahead and click Remove All Patches. Click Yes. And that'll go ahead and take it to an empty Structure Free. Now we're going to go ahead down here to the regions that we just separated in our ad-lib source track, and we're going to highlight all of them. So to do that, click on the first, hold down Shift, and then with the grabber tool, go ahead and click on the last, and that will highlight all of them. Now using the grabber tool, go ahead and grab that whole section of highlighted ad-libs and drag those into the patch section. And when you do that, the Import Samples window inside of Structure Free is going to open. Now what we want to do is go down here to the Map to Key Zone section. And this is where we're going to select to map it chromatically and then to place it on the white keys only. This will just make things a lot easier, and it's, you know, especially considering that we don't have a million different samples and they're not, you know, entirely too hard to keep track of. We can just go ahead and drop those in chromatically, white keys only. Okay. Now, next thing let's do is let's go ahead up here to the new patch and let's name this ad-libs. Okay, oops, if I can learn how to spell. It's early in the morning yet, and I'm on 3 hours of sleep, so you gotta excuse me every once in a while. Okay, now that it's here, let's go ahead over to the Edit 2, and let's check our MIDI controller to ensure that our samples have been loaded.
Yup. Yeah. Yup. No.
Cool. Okay, everything's been loaded. Now, if you go over here to the Sustain and Release under the Edit 2 tab, the shorter and more abrupt you make this, it's actually really cool because it'll chop up and only play, you know, a piece of the sample. You know, as soon as you hit the key, it's only going to play a piece of it after you let go of it. It's not going to continue to play the sample. So if you're going for like a real choppy kind of sound, like, you know what I mean? You can do that by adjusting the sustain and release. Or if you want to just hit the key once, not having to hold down the key to play the whole sample, you just want to tap it. Especially cool if you're working on a pad MPD style controller, which I'm not sure if mine's routed in, but I'll see.
Yeah,
it is. Cool. So if I just hit my pads, you know, one time, having the sustain and release set all the way is cool because then it'll play the entire duration of the sample as opposed to stopping playback as soon as I let go of the key or the pad. So
yeah. No.
Cool. So yeah, you can see, obviously I don't want it to play too much. You can see these all have a little bit of a tail. Now if I really wanted to get specific, prior to opening Structure, I could have gone back and trimmed all of this dead space off of here. That's something I probably should have mentioned to you guys beforehand, but you know, it's not really necessary. Obviously, you can just do that, you know, by adjusting your sustain and release. I just did this to kind of be quick, so I didn't want to sit here and edit regions and all that stuff. But you can trim these back a little bit. Just make sure to leave just a little bit of space at the end of your wave so it doesn't, you know, cut out too much, especially. And then you can adjust your release and sustain so it's a nice soft decay at the end of your wave or at the end of your sample. Now, if you guys want, I'll just go ahead really quick and walk you through quickly recording. So now that we have this ad-lib source loaded in here, we can just go ahead and mute this original track.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, the ad-lib source track that we created. Now, I'll go to right here where the beat kicks in. This is a little intro piece here. Make sure the other ad-libs are muted. And I'm just going to go ahead and record a little bit here. So, all right, here we go.
Mama raised.
Okay, so I mean, I really wasn't, trying to make those sound awesome. I was just kind of walking you through the process of how to do it. And go ahead and disarm your record. Now again, since this is MIDI information, obviously we could select this event. Sorry. We could do tempo operations window. Actually, you know what? Now let's do this. First thing, let's go ahead, event operations. Let's quantize. And let's go ahead and set it to 8th note, apply, boom. So it's went ahead and dropped those in perfectly on time. It's snapped everything to the grid. Actually, I'm still in slip mode, but I should be. Okay, so yeah, I mean, again, I don't have to walk you through all of these MIDI operations and stuff. You guys get it. But the really cool thing that I mentioned before is, it is polyphonic. So, I can play multiple samples at once. Okay, so you get the point. I mean, it's nothing special. It's nothing absolutely crazy, but it's a time-saving trick. It really is, and it allows you to do some cool and different things that traditional comping wouldn't let you do as easily. And that's really just the point of it. I try and show you guys, little cool tips and tricks and time-saving stuff, just to, see what you guys can take from it, and then what you can expand on it and make something even cooler and even more creative out of it. And I'm sure that, some of you that might not have known, how to do this, how to load actual samples of your own audio files into Structure, who have watched this and learned how to do that, will now go out and make some really cool stuff with it. And that's really the goal in all of this. So, whether you use this to trigger ad-libs, whether you use this to trigger sound effects, that's entirely up to you guys. But, I just wanted to throw this out there as a quick tip, trick, and technique, and you guys can do with it what you want. Okay, so lastly, in closing, I just want to go ahead and say that I know the quality of these specific YouTube tutorials, especially right now, isn't so hot. I usually do these on my lunch break or on my dinner break, or like right now at 8:30 in the morning before I start work for the day. And I do them on my mobile rig, recording with the little webcam, not recording obviously into a actual microphone. I just do these to throw stuff up there. If I get an idea for a cool tutorial or something I think might help, or something that some people might want to maybe learn from, I will throw it up there. Or if it's a question that I've been asked, whatever. But the DVD series that's currently being worked on is a full production. I know a lot of people know that I own a video production house that's very well acclaimed. We've won a lot of awards and a lot of cool stuff. Doing music videos, working on feature films, television shows, all of that stuff. Obviously, these tutorials don't get any work from my production company. Like I said, I use a screen capture software, don't edit anything at all, and I upload directly to YouTube from the screen capture software. So my audio isn't edited, my video isn't edited, that's it. I just do this to be quick. But the DVD is awesome. It's very visually appealing, lots of cool visual effects, great cinematography. We've been putting a ton of work into this, and it will come out hopefully the end of this year. That is the goal right now. We were looking at fall, but we've got some really cool people involved, who are going to be interviewed and throwing us some really professional tips and tricks as part of the DVD, and according to their schedules, we just can't get it all done until probably, like I said, around the end of the year. And then the book that I'm working on that kind of coincides with the DVD will probably come out early 2014. So, okay, I just want to throw that out there. So I apologize for the quality of these. When I get some more time to actually sit and play with this stuff, I will up the production value a little bit. So just hang with me for now. But as always, please subscribe to my channel. Please tell your friends, anybody you think might benefit from learning some cool stuff in Pro Tools, especially when it comes to rap, hip-hop, pop. I am going to have some rock tutorials up here real soon for the rock and metal guys. But, stay tuned. Always keep posted. My email is in the description, so send me questions, send me concerns, send me comments, whatever. If, anything I can ever do to help anybody, please let me know. I always will get back to you in due time, I promise. I will always answer questions. I am a freelance mix engineer, so if you guys ever have sessions that you, might want me to put my creative spin on, I love working with new artists. This is what I do for a living and have been for 10 years. So, it's my passion. So, I like working with other people who are passionate about it too. So, always email me, stay contacted, leave comments, subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. And as always, I hope these tips and tricks have helped you out and are helping you guys make some kick-ass tracks. All right, everybody, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.